Denial. It ain't just a river in Africa. It's something that's happened to several Carnival cruisers, denied their cruise. Begs the question why and who's to blame? Plus, we have a cruise couple, maybe in denial, but busted. Busted for trying to smuggle stuff into America after their cruise. You're not going to believe what they tried to smuggle and how much. That plus a whole lot more. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to La Lita Loca. I am your host, Tony, here to talk you through everything going on in cruising. It's a cruise show. It's for your face. It's a Thursday, May the 15th, 2025. And let's talk about cruise passengers denied boarding on the Carnival Miracle. I believe this was the cruise that took out of Lisbon on May the 11th. Carnival Miracle just coming out of dry dock, doing some sailings in Europe, and everything seemed to be going well. Passengers embarked on that cruise ship, but some passengers showed up to the cruise terminal in Lisbon and they did not have a travel authorization for the United Kingdom. Now you're saying, Tony, Lisbon, that's in Portugal. What does that have to do with the United Kingdom? Well, the termination of that cruise was in Dover. Filet of sole, baby. It's my favorite dish. Filet of sole, baby. When the dish is fish, oh, I lose. Anybody know that song? I'll shout out Ludacris. Anybody know that one? That's bonus points. But Dover, a city in the United Kingdom, and therefore it falls under the requirement for the new UK travel authorization. Shoot, I even saw it play out when I was in Portugal earlier this year. We had a cruise on the NCL Aqua going from Lisbon, ended up in Southampton, and we had to have that travel authorization. Here's the big news flash. If you're traveling international, you got to figure out what travel documentation you need. Norwegian sent out a lot of emails to us saying, make sure you check your travel documentation. Carnival Cruise Line, they send out a lot of emails saying, make sure you check your travel documentation, including this UK travel visa. And so if you get to the cruise port and you don't have the right documentation, guess who's to blame? Not Carnival Cruise Line. Look, well, Michael Jackson, the man in the mirror. If you don't have the paperwork that you need for your cruise in Portugal, for your cruise in the UK, for your cruise in the Caribbean, for your cruise in California, that's on you, baby. I hate to be harsh, but we're at that point in cruising where you see this story repeated frequently, people not having the correct travel documentation. And so, listen out there. Hey, listen, make sure you've got the right docs before you try to go to the dock and get on a cruise ship. Look, a real problem in our modern society is the availability of our personal data to people that want to monetize that data, either for good reasons or bad reasons. People who want our data so that they can investigate us for jobs, so that they can do people searches on us, and then for nefarious reasons like, stealing our identity. And a lot of times our data exists out there on the internet because we've consented to use some sort of service. Our data was compiled, put in a data warehouse, and now it's being bought and sold by data brokers. Well, we do have some power in that scenario. We can ask data brokers to remove our data from their data warehouses. The problem is it's not really easy to identify the data brokers and the data warehouses. And that's why I'm thankful for the sponsor of today's episode, Incogni. Incogni is a service that works on your behalf to get your private, sensitive, personal data removed from data warehouses out of the hands of data brokers. It's a simple three-step process. Number one, you sign up with Incogni. Number two, you authorize them to work on your behalf. And number three, you sit back while they interface with these data brokers and get your data removed. I've been using this for a few months now. I've had my data expunged from well over 150 of these data brokers, and the count continues to ratchet up. Look, you can try Incogni for yourself for a discounted price. If you want to scan the QR code that's on the screen or go to www.incogni.com/LaLitaLoca. Use the code LaLitaLoca. You can save 60% off of your annual Incogni subscription. It's a challenge. You've got to protect your personal data. And fortunately, there are services like Incogni that can help you out. Make sure you check out Incogni today. Thank you, Incogni, for sponsoring this episode. Did you see the end of the show yesterday? I took a pretty nasty spill. I guess I'll replay it in a second, but yeah, and give some context and explanation. Cruise news story number 2, Royal Caribbean. They can't be stopped. They're a juggernaut. They made a huge announcement yesterday talking about what they're doing on land, which is pretty interesting because it's a cruise company, right? So they are cacawing their recent efforts for land-based attractions. And there was one that kind of caught me by surprise. Look, we knew that they bought the Costa Maya area and they're turning that into the Perfect Day Mexico. So you got like Perfect Day at Coco Cay over there in the Bahamas, and now you're gonna have Perfect Day Mexico. They released some renderings of what this thing's gonna look like. They got themselves a sombrero water slide. All they need is like a big tub of salsa in the top of it. You can just water slide and get some salsa. In addition to that, they're gonna have the world's longest floating river. In addition to that, they're gonna have one of the world's tallest water slides. Thing's 18 million feet tall. I don't know. There's gonna be a lot of amenities over there is what I'm saying. I think all in all, there's gonna be like 30 water slides in the water park. There's gonna be an adults only area. So it's gonna be like Coco Cay in the Bahamas, but it's gonna be over there in Mexico, perfect for Western Caribbean sailings. And excitingly, in addition to giving the more detailed look at Perfect Day Mexico, they also announced that they're going to have a land-based destination in the South Pacific, Vanuatu. I think they did a Survivor season there. It's really going to be one of the first of its kind in the cruise business. That's why they can use this sexy quote. The first exclusive island cruise destination in the Southern Hemisphere will offer locally inspired experience for guests in Australia and beyond, complete with serene beaches, nature trails, water activities, and delicious dining. Reminds me of that old song, Ain't No Stopping Us Now. Royal has really seized on this idea of not only having the biggest and the best cruise ships, but also really tweaking out and building the biggest and the best land destinations to service those cruise ships. Honestly, it's really transformative in the industry. If you look at some of the trends right now, you see most of the major cruise companies making investments in land-based destinations to service their cruise ships. And that is all on the heels of the charging forward efforts, I think, of Royal Caribbean. That's my opinion. But yeah, I don't know. There you go. That was a big announcement from Royal Caribbean. What do you think? Cruise news story number 3. I did want to talk about a court case that was recently dismissed. This one's been moving around kind of quietly. But if you remember, back when we had the cruise shutdown, it was a challenge for cruise companies because they had to repatriate their crew members. And there's a lot of crew members that were stuck on cruise ships for a long time waiting to get home. Well, a couple crew members felt that that wasn't good treatment of them, and they actually brought a suit against Celebrity Cruise Line, suing them for not getting them home quick enough. Well, a court of appeals has dismissed the lawsuit from the crew members. Court of Appeals found that, yes, while the plaintiffs were in a bad situation, so was Celebrity Cruise Line. And looking at the situation, Celebrity did what they could do, the best that they could do to get everybody home, and they did not act in a way that was actionable. Just remind you that it wasn't that long ago that we weren't cruising, and it does remind you that there were a lot of crew members that went through a hard time during that, and a lot of those crew members still work on cruise ships today, so be nice to the crew members. Now, I got to tell you about this couple that did some outrageous smuggling of a product that's not even illegal in the United States, but they are in trouble, that is sure. But before I do that, I want to take a break. Let's take a dance break. Get up. Get up. That was an indie rock song by a band called Joby, Jobii, called Vacation Berry. And I guess let me quickly address the end of the show yesterday. Sometimes I get a little too amped up, and I did get a stern talking to with love yesterday. But I was rocking back and forth on my chair, which I do most days, but I was exaggerating it, talking about, reclining your chair on an airplane. And then this happened. We'll see. Yeah. That's right. That was unplanned. I knocked myself onto the floor and I'm fine. It was more shocking than anything. And again, it was funny. I did pop back up and say, oh, hey, I'm okay, that kind of thing. But I thought the edit was more funny just to end the show with me laying on the ground. Yeah, so I'm trying not to do that again. I'm double sore today. I don't think because of the falling over, but those exercises I did at the PT the other day, man, I am hurting. All right, now let's talk about the couple that got in trouble after their recent cruise to Ensenada, Mexico for their luggage. And what was in their luggage? There was a couple that went on a cruise from Ensenada, Mexico that disembarked in Long Beach, California. And upon disembarkation, Customs and Border Protection found a couple who were carrying 10 bags of luggage, which is probably a big red flag. Hey, I don't know why I got stopped by Customs and Border Protection. I don't know. Maybe it's because you had 10 bags of luggage for a short cruise. Well, in those 10 bags of luggage, 749 cartons of cigarettes, which cigarettes are legal in the United States, but there are rules about how many cigarettes you can bring back to the United States. This equals 150,000 cigarettes, which I think you can bring 100. I can't remember what the rules are. Like I think it's a carton or however many's in a carton. Is that 100? I don't know. Now what's wild is they did have the receipts for the cigarettes. So they showed up with all the cigarettes. They presented the receipt like, hey, we bought all these cigarettes. I'm assuming they were like, hey, that's for our personal use. But that quantity, anything like that, the Customs and Border Protection looks at it as an attempt to resell cigarettes. It used to be a thing across state lines. Like from the north, people would come buy cigarettes in the south, and then they go resell them in the north, which all of that's illegal. Like you can't do that. It evades taxes, all kinds of stuff. Folks are in trouble. Really no indication as to what's happened to them. But we do know what's going to happen to the 150,000 cigarettes. They're going to make each of them smoke half of them until they get sick to their stomach so they don't want to smoke anymore. No, that's not. The Customs and Border Protection, they're going to destroy the cigarettes. So smoke them up, Johnny. What movie is that from? The big question for today is this. If you could get a free nautical tattoo, what would you get tattooed on you? I'll leave some selections down below. It's a great way to participate in the show if you want to leave an answer down there. Big thanks again to Incogni for sponsoring today's episode. Make sure you check this episode out. I don't think you've seen it. And subscribe for more. This is Tony for La Lido Loca. Until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.